Hi, I'm Meg Baker. I'm Senior Project Manager for Education at SOS UK, Students Organising for Sustainability UK, and I'm here joined by Quinn Runkle, our Director of Education. So we're going to talk to you about Responsible Futures and how Responsible Futures is supporting higher education and further education institutions and their students' unions to embed education for sustainable development into their work. Initially, I'll just give you a brief overview of SOS UK. We launched on the 1st of October last year, really excitingly, with the ambition to be able to go further and faster with our work. We were previously the NUS sustainability team, and with this, we're carrying through a lot of our visions and aims as being part of NUS. So we want to make sure that through our work, we can get more students leading on and learning about sustainability. We want to see sustainability embedded in formal education from early years all the way through to adult learning. And we're really striving to make sustainability more inclusive for everyone. Our work is driven by student demand. So we've got over 10 years worth of data from student surveys that we've been carrying out that show that 88% of students are saying that they agree that their place of study should actively incorporate and promote sustainable development. And we're also consistently finding this hasn't actually changed greatly over the last 10 years, that 80% of students would like to see sustainable development actively incorporated and promoted through all courses. And that 59% of students say that sustainable development is something that they would like to learn more about. So Responsible Futures has been developed deliberately to try and support delivering on this demand from students. All of our work at SOS UK is underpinned by this education theory of education for sustainable development. And it's all about going beyond education about sustainable development to ensure that students not only develop the knowledge and understanding of what sustainable development is and what it could look like, but they're also being equipped with the skills and attributes to turn that knowledge and understanding into action so that they can apply their learning to a real world context, so that when they graduate, they feel confident and capable to carry their values with integrity into the workplace and into their social lives. So you see that theme throughout a lot of our work, especially Responsible Futures. Over to Quinn.
Cool, thanks Meg. So I'm going to provide a little bit of an overview and kind of background on the Responsible Futures program and how it was initially developed. If you can just go to the next slide, Meg. Cool. So Responsible Futures was initially launched in 2014-15 academic year, and it was developed in a really collaborative sort of model. So it was developed in partnership with the 13 pilot partnerships, so across further and higher education institutions in partnership with their students' unions. And those 13 partnerships represented a real array of different sorts of institutions right across the UK. And the framework that underpins Responsible Futures was co-developed between those 13 partnerships and an advisory group made up of representatives from right across the sector, including kind of student-led campaigning organizations like People and Planet, sector bodies like EAUC, and also trade unions like UCU. Over to the next slide, please, Meg. And so the framework that came out of that kind of development work was initially sort of developed as a set of criteria. So the Responsible Futures framework has 45 criteria that kind of cover a whole range of different aspects of what good practice might look like in an educational environment, with the aim of embedding sustainability through all aspects of student learning. So really importantly, the criteria have never and will never specifically say what teaching ought to look like in an individual classroom. That is the responsibility of academics and students to create what that ought to look like for their own discipline and in their own subject area. But what the Responsible Futures criteria aim to do is to create a wider educational environment where the sorts of barriers that academics and students may encounter when seeking curriculum reform, those sorts of barriers are removed and the right sorts of supports are put into place. So that might be everything from, as you can see on the slide, kind of putting the right sorts of strategies and policies into place. It might be things like offering professional development for academics. It might be around resourcing. It might be around supporting course reps to do sort of more development work within their own discipline. And really importantly, underpinning that work with a really clear understanding of where that partnership is currently at with their work around sustainability and education, and then also tracking and monitoring the impacts and the outcomes of this work, so that way we can know the achievements that different partnerships are making. And as a result of completing those criteria, the partnership can then gain accreditation. So the accreditation mark recognizes partnerships who have done a great deal around trying to transform their institution towards an environment that really celebrates and encourages ESD. But it doesn't mark kind of the end of the journey. So the accreditation mark is awarded to partnerships who gain at least 2/3 of the available points from those previous 45 criteria. But importantly, Responsible Futures as a framework really is not one size fits all. So it actually really celebrates the diversity of different approaches that you can see across the sector around how education for sustainable development develops within the cultures and working practices and subject expertise of different institutions. So across those 45 criteria, only 10 are mandatory, the other 35 are optional, and of those, 3 actually celebrate the really unique and special things that partnerships are doing that completely differentiate their practice from the rest of the sector. And those are celebrated through the self-defined criteria. So as a general sort of framework, the Responsible Futures program has some sort of key different aspects of it. And I'm going to hand it over to Meg to kind of talk through this bit. You're on mute, Meg.
Responsible Futures is an accreditation mark, and one of the really valued aspects of that is that in order to achieve the accreditation, partnerships are audited by their own students. So members of SOS UK come in and they meet your students. We spend 2 days with them, and they are trained in understanding what sustainable development could look like, what it is, what education for sustainability is. So to look for pedagogies as well as looking for content. And then they also gain a deeper understanding of what organizational change looks like, which actually through that process heightens their appreciation and understanding of all of the hard work that partnerships go through in order to achieve embedding sustainability and education for sustainable development into everything that an institution and a students' union is doing. So that student-led aspect of the program is highly valued, and it's something that we always get feedback from both the students and from the staff that we work with on. It's a supported change program, so that's support from us because we're working with so many different organisations across the sector, but it's also support from other members of the cohort. So all participating partnerships come together on a regular basis. So that promotes knowledge exchange and shared learning and almost shared brainstorming to overcome challenges and barriers that you might face whilst you're trying to achieve that organisational change. And we often find that those staff that are part of the cohort find it so valuable because it creates a safe space to acknowledge the difficulties that are faced and the challenges and realise that you're not in it alone, even if it's a partnership member from a member of staff from a different institution altogether or a different students' union. The whole institution approach is really important because it's not just focusing on one specific course or making this a niche area of work. It's something that everybody should be doing and something that the whole organisation should be adopting. And also it's a partnership between the Students' Union and the institution, because that's acknowledging and recognising the importance of embedding student voice in the whole process of change at a student experience institution and organisation. So having that Students' Union partnership is like highly important for this change process to work really well. And with all of that, it then creates this framework for good practice. But it's not, we don't call it best practice, we call it good practice, because we recognise that there are lots of different forms of good practice and we want to celebrate that. There's a pretty like standard cycle to how it works when partnerships engage with Responsible Futures. So they'll initially join, and then it can take 1 to 3 years through regular catch-up calls from us and support from us, as well as support like joining annual support days nationally, to prepare a partnership to feel ready for their first audit. That ongoing support we've been developing since Responsible Futures was originally established. And so last year we launched Responsible Futures host partnerships. We've had 3 this year. So we've had Anglia Ruskin, Students' Union and University, University of West of England, University and Students' Union, and Keele University and Students' Union, who are all Responsible Futures host partnerships. And with that, they've hosted support days annually. And they've also provided some mentoring support to just share their practices with others who are trying to develop areas of work that they have experience in. And the feedback has been really positive on that. So it's like a really good way of promoting shared learning throughout the whole process. These student-led audits have also developed since Responsible Futures started, in that on day 2 of the audits, so on day 1 they've got all the training to better understand what change looks like and what sustainable development could look like in an education context, and then they review all the documentary evidence that's been submitted by the partnership. And then on day 2, the students are trained to interview staff members from their university and from their Students' Union. We found that element has a huge amount of value, because the students then learn to meet the people behind the scenes of all this documentary evidence that they've been reviewing on day 1. And the feedback that we get from students on that and from staff find it a really surprisingly challenging experience, because actually they're being held accountable for what they're doing. Even though they know what they're doing is amazing and great, it's like they're being held accountable by their own students. And then the students are always overwhelmingly impressed by the work and the passion behind the staff, or that the staff have in order to be driving this work forward. And so then once they finish that audit, then we provide a really detailed report which provides lots of quotes from students and lots of feedback and recommendations from them to the partnership to keep developing and progressing their work. And then they hold their accreditation for 2 years before then having another audit, and we continue to have those catch-ups and everything for the whole cycle again. It's a multifaceted change and intervention framework. I'm going to get all of these slides to pop up because it just displayed strangely. So the multifaceted element is that we encourage, through the criteria breakdown that Quinn gave you before, top-down, middle-out and bottom-up change, which involves changes in policy and strategy to ensure that we're implementing requirements for ESD into revalidation processes for assessment and for procedures within the institution and the Students' Union, introducing new graduate attributes, because that then ensures that the programs that students are studying are ensuring that they're actually delivering on this to meet the needs of the future by having students equipped with the knowledge and skills and attributes of for sustainable development. It has that middle out element where we're encouraging through the program that staff are supported to have supporting staff with their innovation through things like teaching and learning funds, or just increasing resources to support staff to be able to drive this forward, providing professional development opportunities for staff, and fostering really strong relationships between the Students' Union and the university or the college. And then this bottom-up element is also really key. It's kind of valuing all elements of the change process. So encouraging student and staff collaboration, as well as showcasing how students can campaign for change, as well as course reps being able to champion ESD. Okay, over to Quinn.
Cool. So just as we wrap up, hopefully that's given a bit of an overview of kind of how the program initially developed and what the sort of framework and the overall program looks like today. To date, 30 partnerships have taken part in Responsible Futures. Their logo is shown there. And collectively, they represent over 500,000 students in further and higher education in the UK. And each of these partnerships has really approached Responsible Futures differently. Each has taken their own sort of unique culture and applied Responsible Futures to their institution and to their students' union. And so some of those have gained accreditation, others are currently working towards accreditation. But that cohort and that the diversity of that cohort really reflect that sort of culture of the program that Meg's been talking about around sort of collaboration, not only within an institution, but also across these different institutions to share good practice and share learning. So I think that basically concludes what we wanted to say and share about the program. Thank you so much for listening. You can feel free to get in touch with us. That's our Twitter handle or our website, and also both of our email addresses. The program continues to develop thanks to the input of all of the current Responsible Futures partnerships. So as we look ahead to the 2020-2021 year, we're looking at new ways of the sort of encouraging that sort of cohort working, getting many more institutions and students' unions collaborating with one another in kind of smaller group environments, and continuing the good work through the host partnership model that Meg mentioned, where a selection of partnerships each year help to lead and co-develop the program. So we've almost gone full circle in the last 5 years of the Responsible Futures program running, in that it started as initially collaboration with those 13 partnerships who created the initial framework and set up the program. And now, thanks to the leadership of partnerships within the program, we continue to see that innovation and development happening within the program as the years go on. So thanks again for your attention. And yeah, look forward to hearing any feedback that you may have through email or other platforms. Thanks, everyone. Bye.